That's exciting. Okay, we are going to be in John chapter 5, beginning in verse 1. That is the next sign that we're going to look at. I know Terry preached on this a couple of weeks ago in his Questions That Jesus Asked series. We're going to look at that a little bit more. But hopefully, I don't think it's going to be repetitious of what he did. I think we've got some other things that we can look at and look to. But I hope that it can maybe give us a peace of mind. I know it's hard. It's hard for me. I'm not going to say it's hard for you. It's hard for me, in human terms, to be patient with God. Because I want things right now. I want it to be done right. When I ask for it, I want it to be done right now. I have a hard time waiting. Maybe it's the culture that we live in. I mean, I know it's part of the culture that we live in. But think about the stories that we read in the Bible. Abraham was given a promise. Abraham was given a promise by God that he was going to have descendants that outnumbered the stars in the sky. When was he told this promise? How old was he when he was told this promise? 75 years old. 75 years old. How many offspring did he have at 75 years old? 0. How in the world are you going to make that possible, God? 0 children. You're going to have descendants to outnumber the stars. How long did he have to wait before he got a descendant? 25 years. He even tried to take matters in his own hands, and God said, no. Wait for me. 25 years. That's a long time. 25 years is a long time. John chapter 5. After this, there was a feast of the Jews. Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now, there in Jerusalem, by the sheep gate, a pool in Aramaic called Bethesda or Bethsaida, or there's another term that one of my Bibles said that I couldn't pronounce, which has 5 roofed colonnades. In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. And while I am going, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed, and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and walked. Now that day was the Sabbath. What do we find going on here? Somebody summarize what we see here. Ma'am? Okay.
You see an act of faith.
Okay. Say again. Love. Okay.
It happened on the Sabbath.
Ooh. Happened on the Sabbath. What's that mean? It's going to mean a lot for Jesus and his disciples, isn't it? Later.
The man who was basically helpless, he'd been there 38 years. I'm sure he had given up almost.
Absolutely. Giving up hope.
Kind of like Abraham, how in the world he believed for so long.
How can we, when we've wanted something so long, we just don't see any signs of it coming to pass? How do we keep our faith?
That's the challenge. You just got to trust him.
That's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Hey, Jason.
Yes.
You just have to remember all the times he came and pulled you through before. Or answered, your prayers.
And hopefully we do. But how many times has disappointments been in the forefront of our, like right here and we don't remember those things because I've been disappointed this time. It didn't happen this time. God's not answering my prayers. He's not making it happen. 38 years, this man. Yes, sir?
I would never disagree with Johnny. It may sound like him, but I'm not. The guy probably was certainly disappointed, maybe didn't even believe he'd be healed, but something inside of him kept him going there, or however he got there, I'm not sure. So inwardly, deep down inside, he still had not given up, even though he maybe had no hope of things happening. Had he not have been there, it would have never happened.
Right? Yes?
Well, I think, obviously there have been others that have been healed, and he's witnessed it. And seeing what has happened to others is definitely going to give him the hope of, hey, it could happen to me, even though it might be like me winning the lottery, but there's still hope.
There's that chance, right? I got a 1 in a million chance. So you're saying there's a chance, right?
It comes down to one thing. The man had faith and believed. That all these people that Jesus healed, they all had one attribute. They believed in the name of Jesus. They believed in his power. That's just like in the Old Testament, there was a remnant saved. Not everybody's going to buy what God has. And we have to keep the faith even when we're on our deathbed, because the promise is not what's in this world, it's what's in the next. It don't matter if you have all the toys in the world, you don't win. It's that faith, that hope, what Paul talked about, keep fighting the race. And through all the challenges we go through, we still have to be grounded in the faith, that anchor, regardless of the outcome. Because we're going to have a lot of challenges. Everybody in this room, I'm sure, has had challenges in their life. But what you come through on the other side is what really, and keep believing that God will answer prayers. It may not be the answer we want, but he's going to take care of it. You just got to believe that.
Ma'am? Substance of things hoped for. Did this man have faith in God, or did he have faith in the waters?
He had faith in the waters.
He had faith in the waters because apparently, kind of like Terry said last week, verse 4 is eliminated in most of our Bibles, but verse 4 said, it was thought that an angel came and stirred up the waters, and the first one that was in the water was going to be the one that was healed. They have, I didn't put this in my lesson, but I did read it, so it's kind of fresh on my mind. Archaeologists have discovered this area in digs, and they found what they believe to be this particular gate, because there was remnants of 5 covered porches like these porticos, and the water that would have been there was fed by an underground spring. So at times when that spring was, I guess, given water, it would cause ripples, and that's what they thought. The angel had come and touched the water. So his faith wasn't quite in God yet, was it? His faith was in the hope that he could be the first one in to these waters when they were stirred. So was his faith in the right, or was his hope in the right place? It was misguided, wasn't it? Sometimes we may think that our faith is in the right place, but if we step back and check ourselves, if we step back and reflect, maybe our hope is not in the right place. Maybe we say it is, but if we were to be challenged, if we have, and this is a later point, I'm kind of jumping around, if we have friends, true friends, who are able to tell us the truth, the hard things that we need to hear, sometimes they may say, your faith's not where it needs to be. You're putting your hope in a situation or in something that it doesn't need to be. So this man was hoping that he could be the first one in. But why wasn't he able to be the first one in? Why wasn't he able to get there first? Paralyzed. He couldn't move. And I don't know if he was paralyzed from the neck down, from the waist down, but apparently he had tried, because it says, sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water stirred up. While I am going, another steps down before me. So it seems like he's able to move a little bit, but he doesn't have that good friend who's able to put him in the water. Okay, kind of like when Jesus healed the paralyzed man, who his four friends had the four corners of the bed sheet, were taking him to Jesus, and they couldn't get through, so what'd they do? Went up on the roof, punched a hole in it, laid him down. He apparently didn't have these four friends. Because imagine, think, 38 years you've been in the same. He probably had the prime spot because he doesn't move. He doesn't leave every night. Over the course of 38 years, maybe I can, as this person is healed or this person is healed or they're well, maybe I can scooch closer to where they are and I can get that prime spot, but he still can't get in there, right? Yes, ma'am.
It's when St. Jason, this all goes back to God. He put that healing in the water. That's why he had to get in that water. God did that for the kid, for him to heal. Otherwise, same thing with baptism today. We have to be baptized into Christ, into his body, which is the church, to get the cleansing of our sins. We don't understand it.
Don't understand it. Don't know how it works,
God said it.
but it works, right?
And that's his word. We have his, we believe and we trust. How do we baptize into his body, which is the church, which he cleansed with his own blood? We will be saved. So that's, he has to cleanse it in the water. We have to get into that water, be baptized.
Yes, ma'am.
And the interesting thing is, a lame guy gets in there maybe, and he gets up and he can walk. That might be, I don't know, he might be able to fake that. A
Something we
blind
don't
guy,
understand, right?
Somebody that cannot see, he finds himself into the water, and he comes up, and all of a sudden he can see. There's gotta be something to that water there.
Maybe so. Maybe that's why he sat there for 38 years.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And that's the reason why he was holding out for all that time, waiting on his chance to get into that water. There had to be something about the water.
So he assumed that there was healing properties in that water, right? Where did the healing come from? So what in your life, maybe when you were younger, you assumed things that turned out not to be the way you thought they were? Has there been something in your life that you assumed when you were younger, maybe as a child, maybe as a young adult, but it turned out it wasn't right? Anybody have an example of that? A lot of wisdom in here. I know somebody's got a story they can share. In 1939, a man by the name of George Dantzig. Does anybody know who that is, by the way? George Dantzig? He was a graduate student at the University of Cal at Berkeley. And he was enrolled in a statistics course. At the beginning of one of these sessions, one of his daily classes, the professor put two examples of famously unsolved problems on the blackboard. And he told his students, these are unsolvable problems. Well, George was late to class that day. So when he comes into class and he takes a seat, he's missed the precursor to the lesson. So he sees the problems on the board, takes out his notebook, he writes the problems down, closes his notebook because he says, it's probably homework, I'll solve them later. I want to listen to what's going on. He goes home, starts to work on them. And he's noticing that it takes him a little longer to solve these problems than it has the last sets of homework problems. But he does it, turns his work in. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday morning, the professor comes and knocks on his door, and he is ecstatic because he has solved these problems. One Sunday morning, the professor knocked on his door, ecstatic to share the news with George that he had indeed solved 2 of the world's unsolvable problems. George said, if someone had told me they were famous unsolved problems, I wouldn't even try to work them. What does it say about our assumptions sometimes?
You get what you believe.
Okay?
You don't believe, you can't get
Henry Ford, we know that name, right? Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. How many times growing up do we tell our children, like the little engine that could, right? I think I can, I think I can. If we have that positive self-talk, we're probably going to be, will we always reach our goal? Will we always attain what we're striving for? No, but if we never try, we won't, right?
My grandmother always told me,
Can't never could do anything. I got that a lot of times too. My mom said, can't never. Mom, I can't. Well, can't never could. Yep, that's right. No, go ahead.
Are you still on the thing about the childhood thing?
Go ahead.
Well, my mom put me in baseball. Every time that baseball would fly up in the air, in the outfield, I could not catch myself to get up under it to catch it for anything. And I learned a lot from that, just the fear of that ball, but, what my whole story is that, don't be scared, and just trust. Amen?
That's right. So that's one of the reasons why I believe, like we've said before, that's one of the reasons why some of these things we don't understand them or we don't reach out, because disappointments in the past and fear keep us from maybe receiving the things that God is trying to give us, the blessings that God's trying to give us, the miracles that are coming our way, but fear and disappointment have hindered us from receiving those things. It doesn't matter. It's not about mind over matter, but it's about faith over matter, right? And again, I've told you guys before, I pray a lot that God will strengthen my faith, because there's things that we can't explain, and then there's sometimes where we try to explain things away and we don't give God the credit that He's due. And I've been guilty of that far too often. Far often in the past than I'm going to be in the future. Another quick story. A young man by the name of Ethan was in kindergarten, and they were doing the standard hearing tests that they do for young people. And when they had that hearing test, it was revealed that he had hearing loss in his right ear, so they sent him to the doctor. Follow-up visit to the doctor showed that his right eardrum had ruptured, so they made another appointment. They were supposed to go to this children's hospital. When he got to the children's hospital, it was discovered that he had a cholesteatoma. Is that right? Cholesteatoma? Sounds right. Good enough. Which is a destructive and aggressive growth in the middle ear that would require surgery for this young man. So now he's got this problem, okay? He was scheduled for a 7-hour surgery to remove the growth, and when he was in surgery, the doctor discovered that it had completely eroded his eardrum, the bones inside the eardrum, and his ear canal, and it was dangerously close to crossing over into his brain lining. Sounds pretty dire circumstances. Over the next 2 years, he would undergo 12 more surgeries, which led to doctors saying that his condition would require a radical craniotomy. Now, this young man is 5, 6, 7 years old, undergoing a lot of this stuff that kids don't need to go through, right? The thought of opening up the skull on their son sent shockwaves through their parents. Now, they were believing people, they were faith people, and in their own words, this did not shake our faith because we constantly prayed to God. But imagine as a parent and your young child gets this news. Pretty devastating news, right? So on August 20th, which was Ethan's birthday, his mom was reading a daily devotional when Ethan walked into her room and asked what the devotional said. As she read the words to her son, she began to cry. These were the words: "I am the God who heals. I heal broken bodies, broken minds, broken hearts, broken lives, and broken relationships. My very presence has immense healing powers. You cannot live close to me without experiencing some degree of healing." She circled those words so that she could go back to them and read them again and again and again and again. But after she read them, she said, "Son, I believe God is telling us that He's going to heal you. Do you believe that?" And Ethan, who was 8 years old at the time, said to his mom, "A man can only hope." I'm going to stop there because I wonder what this young man is feeling at this point in his life. He's undergone numerous surgeries, and he probably still can't hear out of his right ear because it's disintegrating, and he can't do anything about it. So he was scheduled for surgery 8 months later to do this radical craniotomy. The standard procedure was for the nurse to provide updates every 45 minutes. I forgot to mention, the mom and the dad and their church family prayed about this constantly. As you can imagine, praying about this constantly. Standard procedure was for the nurse to provide updates every 45 minutes. During the early part of the surgery, the nurse did provide the updates, but then they stopped. After 6 hours, Ethan's parents began to worry because they hadn't gotten any updates. When the nurse finally emerged from the operating room, she told them that the doctors weren't giving her any updates, so she had nothing to share with them. 7 hours after Ethan was taken in for surgery, the surgeon finally came out to talk to the parents. As they began to talk to them, the doctor looked puzzled because he said there was no physical evidence of the disease in Ethan's ear. He said the CT scan before the surgery was completely different than the one they had done months earlier. The cholesteatoma was nowhere to be found, and the parts that were affected were completely regenerated. The doctor had no explanation. In the words of the mom, to say that I was shocked would be an understatement. We looked at each other in utter amazement. We prayed for this very hard, but we were still surprised when God answered those prayers. From what all the doctors tell us, this isn't even possible. Skull bone doesn't restore itself, and the cholesteatoma cannot go away on its own. It's just not physically possible. ... But it is God possible. It doesn't stop there, because in that surgery they removed some of the cranial bone as a precaution. 1 year later, when they go in for the follow-up scan, God did it again because those bones were completely regenerated. How do we explain that? How long did he have to wait? And you think about us, being patient for adults is hard. How is being patient with kids? How easy is it for kids to be patient? So at 5 years old, he finds out he can't hear well, he's going to be deaf. I mean, his life may be in jeopardy. If that, whatever that is, gets into his brain, who knows what kind of problems that could cause. Maybe even taking his life. And then he has to endure surgery after surgery after surgery after surgery. But then to find out when you're 8 years old and you go in for a major surgery, that everything is all better. Only God can do stuff like that.
I want to go back to the man at the well. We don't know how long he was there. Maybe he'd been sitting there for 38 years. I kind of doubt it. But he obeyed what God told him to do, which was Jesus. He told him to get up. What I get out of that? Obey God's commandments.
Right. Right.
That's the whole.
Even when it's hard. Even when we don't understand.
Even when it's hard, obey God's commandments.
Because it may take 38 years. It may take 25 years. But what is time to God?
Because he could have said, I'm not getting up. I've been here all this time, nothing's worked. He didn't do that.
So, in Terry's lesson a couple of weeks ago, and it's one of the things that we're going to talk about, he asked the man point blank, hey, do you want to get well? Well, that's a silly question, isn't it? If someone asked you after 38 years of being this way, if you wanted to get well, what would you say? Absolutely. I wish God would take my negativity away right now, where I could be a positive person and not look at that glass as half empty, have that glass half full. He hadn't done it yet. You want to get well? But what did it mean when Jesus asked that man that question? What did it mean? What did he have to do? Yeah, I want to get well, but I want to stay here in the spot that's been my home for 38 years. Was that going to be possible? No. What does it mean when God asks us, do you want to get well?
Obey his commandments.
Okay. What else comes with that?
Repent. Turn away from evil.
Okay.
I think it means, have faith.
You gotta have
Faith, right?
You gotta have faith. I always say, like people in Hebrews chapter 11 that are given to us to look towards. All those people that are mentioned in there, they all had that kind of faith. Can't be weak. I think somebody mentioned, you said it, you gotta believe. You gotta believe what you pray can be answered.
Prayer is the key to heaven, but faith unlocks the door.
Good.
You know, go and sin no more. And, no worse thing will come to thee. You know, that'll make you want to think about that.
There's going to be responsibility to that answering that question, right? Do you want to get well? This man had to get up and walk. What has he been doing for 38 years?
Laying on the bed.
Laying there, begging for help, begging for food, begging for money. What's he going to have to do now?
It's the trust.
Ma'am?
It's the trust.
He's going to have to get up and go to work. Maybe I don't want to do that. So that question means a lot, doesn't it? God, please give me, whatever it is you're praying for, God, give me healing. Give me this blessing. Give me whatever it is. Well, what if God answers that? Now what do I have to do? Now I've got some responsibilities.
Amen.
So that question means a lot. Jason, do you really want this? Do you really want whatever it is that you're asking? Because if I give it to you, now you're going to be tasked with some responsibilities. Now you got to go and share those things. I've blessed you. Now you go in turn bless other people. Yes, ma'am.
You gotta be patient and wait on the Lord.
Yeah. Sometimes it might be 38 years, 25 years, like Abraham. Sometimes it may be 50 years, 75 years. Right? I lost my train of thought.
James, that's why James
Yes.
People and myself and all. So that prayer is still there.
Right, and I've prayed that myself. When things have, it seems like when things in my world were turned upside down, I would think about that verse, and I would even pray to God, help me be a righteous man so that you will hear my prayers. And I know righteous people are praying for me, but I want to be righteous too so that so that you'll hear my prayers and answer them.
Man, that's an intentional thing.
Yeah. So, what was this man's moniker, if you will? What is he called? What's his? What do we look at him as? What has he been looked at his whole life, or at least for 38 years? An invalid, right? How do we look at people? Do you look at people according to their past experiences, what we know about them, or do you look at people based off of their future potential? Again, I'm a pessimist. I'm a negative person. I look at somebody and all I see is their past. And I look at, well, that guy will never, because he's done this, or he'll never amount to anything because he's lazy, he's whatever. How did the Pharisees look at people? They looked at people through a negative lens, didn't they? How did Jesus look at people? How do we make fun of Peter in the Bible? What kind of things do we say about Peter? What's kind of our mindset or our outlook on Peter?
I think of him as an apostle, and I'm careful to say anything negative about him. 'Cause
Okay.
I know I've done worse.
No question.
100
No
times
question.
than Peter has. And I think
Do we say Peter was quick to open his mouth and not think before he spoke?
most definitely.
Do we say he was an impetuous person? Yeah, right? Did Jesus let that influence how he looked at Peter? Because as his birth name was Simon, what did Jesus do to Peter, or to Simon? Change his name to Peter, which means what? Why would you put that on someone who is impetuous, who sticks their foot in their mouth, who speaks before they think? Why would Jesus do that?
Jesus could see into the future. He knew what was going to happen with Peter.
Jesus could see future potential. What does that say about how we need to look at people? Again, we are not like Jesus, and we can't see somebody's future potential. But if we keep the label that is stuck on this, if this man kept invalid as his label for the rest of his life, do you think he would have been able to amount to anything? Probably not. If I keep my moniker, if you keep your moniker, is that going to affect your potential future as a Christian? It could, right? Because when we are baptized and when we have our sins washed away, we become a Christian. We become like Christ. We are trying to now live our lives the way Christ did. Okay? We can't look at people and we can't attach stigmas to people. We can't look at their past and say they'll never amount to anything because of this and this and this and this. We have to now encourage. We have to now edify and build people up, right? Peter, who was impetuous, who had his name changed to Peter and a rock, as he's watching this miracle occur, what happens in Acts chapter 3? In Acts chapter 3, as they're going to the temple. Now, Peter and John were going up to the temple at the ninth hour of prayer, the ninth hour, and a man lame from birth was being carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple that is called the Beautiful Gate, to ask alms of those entering the temple. Seeing Peter and John about to go into the temple, he asked to receive alms, and Peter directed his gaze at him, as did John, and said, "Look at us." And he fixed his attention on them, expecting to receive something from them. But Peter said, I have no silver and gold, but what I do have, I give to you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk. Why do you think Peter did that? What did he see? I don't know, maybe a year, 2 years earlier? He saw Jesus do the same thing, didn't he? What does that say about us? Yes.
Well, Jesus said somewhere that if you think you're something, you are nothing. And first of all, we're not the judge, just like you said, we're not the judge. So I love to go around making people feel good.
Yes, you do.
I can't imagine, and that's what we're commanded to do, and somebody might really be in a bad way, and whatever attitude, and whatever you might say to them could make or break them, and we're all equal. I made us the same. So we just have to strive harder.
All right, we're out of time, but I'm going to issue the same challenge that I've done the last couple of weeks. Who in your life needs to hear this? Who can you think about right now that needs to hear what we're talking about? Who needs to know that 38 years is nothing to God? 75 years is nothing to God. You need to pray about it. You need to pray hard about it because never too late. And God can do things that we just, unimaginable things. Somebody had their hand up? No. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, the way I read the story of the well is that the well is false hope, that there is no healing in that well. It's just a rumor, and that people are running and as the water moves, they want to believe what they want to believe. And if it is like has been found that it's just a well coming up from underneath, then there's man's rules saying, here's the rules, you got to be the first one in to receive the healing. The point is it's all false. It's all a lie. That the only true healing comes from Jesus and God himself. That it was only God who had healing to offer. And then Peter, again, had the healing to offer, which came from Jesus and that walk that he had. That everything else is just a false lie.
Very good. Any other comments or thoughts?
I think the Bible says we can, Jesus says you don't have because you don't ask. But at the same time, he says don't doubt or you will lose.
Yeah, I got that written down. We have not because we ask not. We have not because we try not. And we have not because we believe not. Right? We need to throw all those assumptions out the window. We need to put our trust in God. Thank you guys for your attention. Appreciate it.
Why I brought that up.